In the mid-1900s, violent dictators around the world were shaking up the global landscape, causing dramatic shifts in power away from the people towards absolute control.
Amongst these dictators, one would change the Middle East and make its future uncertain.
Saddam Hussein al-Majid al-Takriti was born on the 28th of April, 1937, in Al-Alja, Iraq, a small village 2 hours to the north of Baghdad.
He was born to a small Sunni family, with his dad dying before he was born, causing his mother to become depressed.
Saddam spent a lot of time with his uncle, as his mother would have nothing to do with him. His stepfather would beat him on the regular, which led Saddam to flee for Baghdad with his uncle at the age of 10.
While in Baghdad, Saddam was influenced by his family to join a nationalistic high school where, with the support of his uncle, he joined the Radical Ba'ath Party, where he participated in an unsuccessful assassination attempt on the Iraqi prime minister, which he was wounded during, forcing him to flee once more to Egypt. Saddam from there joined the Ba'ath political party, which aimed to unite the Middle East, and after a while in Egypt, he joined an Iraqi law school before dropping out after 3 years. Unfortunately for him, the Ba'ath Party was overthrown and Saddam was arrested. Saddam escaped from prison and then became the leader of the Ba'ath Party, allowing for him to take power within the Iraqi government. Now with power in the Iraqi government, Saddam was appointed president, chairman of the Revolutionary Command Council, and prime minister in 1979. With even more power now, Saddam started his reign of terror by initiating a secret police service to extinguish opposition to his rule, starting purges, such as this moment with his 1979 purge of the Ba'ath Party.
حزب البعث العربي الاشتراكي رايات في كل العالم تأشر على صفاء مبادئه وخلقه ومبدئيته وأصالته في النضال من أجل القضايا القومية. بعد 11 سنة يظهرون خونة من هذا الطراز. هذا شيء وانتم تعرفون شنو إجراءنا وياه هي شيء خونة، لا شيء غير السيف.
Saddam also created a cult of personality amongst the general population. In 1980, Saddam invaded Iran's oil fields in an attempt to build the economy of Iraq. This war was very costly to the Iraqi people, and the war only ended in 1988, 8 years later after creating massive national debt. Saddam attempted to do a similar thing next with his invasion of Kuwait oil fields, but this time, global tariffs took place to dissuade him from further harming Middle Eastern countries, including the UN condemning the acts. Tensions continued to arise amongst global superpowers until the Persian Gulf War began in 1991, with the U.S. leading Operation Desert Storm with 42 other countries allied with them to try to push Iraq out of Kuwait. This ended 6 weeks later with Iraqi troops withdrawing and another massive defeat for Saddam's plans. With the ceasefire created from the end of the war, Iraq was prohibited from using chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons by the UN, and further tariffs harmed the economy as a result of Saddam's leadership.
From the global outcry against Iraq, anti-U.S. sentiment was pushed, hoping to solidify Iraqi nationalism.
With our souls, our blood, they're chanting, we'll sacrifice our lives for you, Saddam. Iraqi parliamentarians outside a UN building denounced the attack.
Saddam, however, was viewed very favorably by Middle Eastern countries as one of the only countries willing to stand up to the U.S.
The Middle East at this time was a completely chaotic place. With wars all around, various terrorist groups, and religions pitted against each other, the stage was set for massive wars on the global scale. All it needed was a catalyst.
I had one. Appear that there's any kind of an effort up there yet. Now remember, oh my God.
Oh my God.
That looks like a second plane.
I did not see a plane go in. That just exploded.
We just saw another plane come.
60 on page 153.
Our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. The victims were in airplanes or in their offices. Secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads. Search is underway for those who are behind these evil acts. I've directed the full resources of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to find those responsible and to bring them to justice.
With a Western country finally attacked, the U.S. and a coalition of its allies now had reason to interfere with the affairs of the Middle East, and with violent terrorist groups all throughout and new anti-Islam sentiment, war was inevitable. Because of terrorist groups such as Al-Qaeda within the Middle East, the U.S. began to believe that Iraq might provide terrorist groups with weapons and supplies, so the U.S. started to push for the disarmament process once more.
Saddam was not allowing further inspections of the country for weapons by the UN, which was required to do after the end of the Persian Gulf War, causing an end to diplomacy between the US and Great Britain and Iraq. In early 2003, this happened.
My fellow citizens, events in Iraq have now reached the final days of decision. For more than a decade, the United States and other nations have pursued patient and honorable efforts to disarm the Iraqi regime without war. That regime pledged to reveal and destroy all its weapons of mass destruction as a condition for ending the Persian Gulf War in 1991. Since then, the world has engaged in 12 years of diplomacy. We have passed more than a dozen resolutions in the United Nations Security Council. We have sent hundreds of weapons inspectors to oversee the disarmament of Iraq. Our good faith has not been returned. All the decades of deceit and cruelty have now reached an end. Saddam Hussein and his sons must leave Iraq within 48 hours. Their refusal to do so will result in military conflict, commenced at a time of our choosing.
With the refusal to comply, the U.S. launched an invasion of Iraq 3 days after the press conference, vowing to destroy Iraqi weapons of mass destruction and to end the dictatorship of Saddam Hussein. Saddam, however, responded to the invasion by immediately going into hiding, fearing the worst for the lives of himself and his family. In early April, only weeks after the beginning of the invasion, the U.S. and Britain coalition forces were able to overwhelm the Iraqi army with only extreme Saddam loyalists remaining in the fight. Iraqi civilians and U.S. troops worked together to topple a statue of Saddam in Iraq, marking a symbolic moment of ideological victory within the country. On May 1, 2003, George W. Bush declared the end of major combat operations with the country, with the only fighting remaining with a few straggler forces. The U.S. during this time dismantled the Iraqi army, which caused vast consequences for the country, with over 100,000 armed men being turned to the streets. This and a purging of the Ba'ath Party within Iraq continued political and social chaos within the country. With the Iraqi forces now completely devastated, the Allied forces turned their main focus to finding Saddam. Now, it is important to note that the forces deployed in Iraq were given decks of playing cards with different wanted members of Saddam's inner circle assigned to different cards as an attempt to familiarize the soldiers with the people they were finding. The major cards were assigned as follows: the Ace of Spades for Saddam Hussein, the most wanted; the Ace of Clubs and Hearts for Saddam's two sons; and the Ace of Diamonds for Abid Hamid Mahmoud, a presidential advisor for Saddam. The rest of the cards were either Ba'ath Party members, Saddam's family, or military aid leaders.
In June of 2003, Saddam's sons, the Aces, were captured, and the manhunt leading up to their capture still did not reveal where Saddam was hiding. Behind the scenes of the search for Saddam, one interrogator named Maddox began to believe that one of Saddam's bodyguards would be able to lead them right to him. With their interest in the bodyguard, they arrested the bodyguard's driver, who told them that the bodyguard, Mohammed Ibrahim, was the messenger for Saddam and his insurgency.
They later captured Mohammed Ibrahim, who told them that he would take them to Saddam in exchange for his safety. Mohammed then led the search party titled Red Dawn to Saddam's hometown, where the search party spent hours trying to locate him.
After hours of searching and nothing to show for it, the search party grew suspicious of Ibrahim. Now, I wasn't there for this next part, but I can imagine what Ibrahim did next when a little something like this.
Man, I've been out here all day looking for this son of a biscuit. If only I had some sort of clue of where he is. Oh, what's that, Mohammed?
Man, Mohammed, what are you doing, bro? If only I had some sort of clue of, like, where this guy could be. Dude, there are no bee stops. Wait a minute. Could it be? What could this lead me to? Oh my gosh. Is that who I think it is? Saddam! After finally finding Saddam,
ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
the U.S. then showed the world the state of a once all-powerful man cowering in a hole in the ground, essentially leading to the end of the reign of Saddam Hussein.
After being captured and arrested by U.S. forces, Saddam Hussein was put on trial and was found guilty for crimes against humanity. Because of this, on the morning of December 30th, 2006, Saddam was hanged for his crimes at the age of 69. The execution was controversially broadcasted on Iraqi national television.
After instilling years of terror, one might be led to assume that the death of Hussein was a good thing, and that the U.S. acted rightfully.
However, the views on this are differing, as no weapons of mass destruction were ever found in Iraq, and the Iraqi government was never funding terrorists, which was the whole reasoning behind the invasion.
Mr. Bush, when are you going to apologize for the million Iraqis that are dead because you lied? You lied about weapons of mass destruction. You lied about connections to 9/11. You lied about Iraq being a threat. You sent me to Iraq. You sent me to Iraq in 2003. My friends are dead.
Many, in fact, believe that the U.S. was acting to take advantage of the Iraqi oil fields and believe that the economic and social repercussions of the war in Iraq were wholly unjustified, as terrorism in the country, in fact, increased from the political instability.
We're done.